Good afternoon from Synaxis Press again. We're going to, as I say, do the readings of the books that expose the aerial toll house myth, mostly here in Synaxis Press. And I want to remark on two things about it. First of all, Father Michael Pomazansky in his letter to me agreeing that the toll house tale was really a parable or a mishnah, that it could not be taken seriously, literally. That, as he says, the toll houses could only be understood as your own conscience. And the prosecuting demons could only be understood as your own remembrance of sins and vile actions. And the angels who defend you could only be remembrance of your repentance. Otherwise, it would make no sense. He also comments on the lives of the saints, though. People try to rummage through the lives of the saints to find some justification for this heresy. And, of course, you'll find something you can interpret that way. But as Father Michael Pomazansky commented, the lives of the saints have no doctrinal or dogmatic significance. They are only inspirational reading. You cannot form doctrine or teaching from the lives of the saints. Now, there are two very obvious reasons for it. First of all, many of the saints, particularly the ones who are the simple monks, would have been deeply steeped in the folk religion around them, which in Egypt would have meant things that had been in the Egyptian Book of the Dead or come down from Egyptian paganism. And the same for those in the East who would have been influenced by Chaldean, Mesopotamian, Manichaean folk religion. The other thing is, we don't know who wrote the lives of the saints. We don't know what their status was. We do know that they added many thoughts from themselves, sermonizing little stories and fables that they made up according to the spirit of their own particular era. We mentioned once before that St. Dimitri of Rastiv added a lot of personal sermonizing to his lives of the saints. Came up with what somebody said in the privacy or secrecy of their own closet to demons or to angels, things that nobody could possibly have any idea what was said in those conversations, or what was, if indeed there even were moments in the closet with demons or angels. So searching through the lives of the saints for some kind of proof is simply vain. The other thing now that strikes me in, I don't know whether it's OrthoWiki or Wiki, one of the Wikipedias anyway, somebody sent me a lengthy quote from one of them in which it attempted to demonstrate that you could find some evidence here and there for the toll houses in some of the lives of the saints. Well, let's take a look at what's wrong with that, quite apart from the fact that the lives of the saints are absolutely useless as a source of doctrine. And some of them are actually not even true. Some of the events or incidents that occur in some of the lives of the saints are simply the theosophizing or philosophizing or sermonizing of whoever it was that wrote or edited the lives of the saints. They've gone through several editions, and one edition doesn't match another. So, but here's the other point. If you have to ferret and search and sweat yourself at finding proof texts here and there, some vague reference in the lives of the saints or something, that clearly demonstrates that the teaching they're advocating is not a teaching of the church and not accepted by the church. Now, doctrine such as the aerial toll houses, which would be of such great significance and of such great importance to everyone, is not a Gnostic doctrine hidden away in some occult or arcane proof text that might be rummaged out of the lives of the saints or something. Some secret knowledge is known by the Gnostic Illuminati, which they little by little reveal to the rest of the world. That's sheer Gnosticism, of course. Such a doctrine of such import would be writ large in the history and tradition of the church. It would occupy a major part of the funeral service and the memorial services. It would be mentioned by the Holy Fathers every time they talked about services for the departed, the condition of the departed. It would be mentioned in ecumenical councils. You see, the Toll House cult members have tried to elevate this heresy to the level of a profound and meaningful dogma of the faith, which has great impact upon our salvation. Now, do you think that a doctrine or teaching that had such great impact upon our salvation and our chances of entering the heavenly kingdom would have been tucked away in some kind of arcane hints, vague references, where only an Illuminati, a Gnostic Illuminati, could have known those, ferreted them out, and presented them? Do you see how ludicrous such an assertion is? How ludicrous the whole concept of the aerial toll houses is. It really is presented as an arcane Gnostic hidden secret, there for the Illuminati to know, and little by little to eke out in dribbles to the auditori, the ordinary faithful. This is blasphemous, and it's utter unmitigated nonsense. No doctrine of that kind would have been so hidden away that only an Illuminati could know about it. It would have been written every place, all over the place, and especially in the funeral service and the memorial services. Just like the idea of wandering souls flitting about for 3 days, then going to heaven and then going to hell and seeing the torments of those in hell, when of course hell doesn't exist yet in that sense. And that they could actually go to heaven or hell without the body, when the Holy Fathers say it's absolutely impossible for that to happen. You see the madness, the almost Gnostic insanity of the doctrine of the aerial toll houses. So this arcane knowledge that only the Illuminati can shed a light on, and that's hidden from the divine services, that's hidden from the Holy Fathers, that's hidden from the knowledge of the faithful in the church, and yet is so profoundly important to our salvation. This is just madness. But anyway, let us read on the lives of the saints. In order to prove his theory about the soul after death, Father Seraphim drew on every available account, religious and secular, not the least of which was the lives of the saints, east and west. In this, he followed the lead of Bishop Ignati Brianchaninov. Father Seraphim was greatly impressed with the tale told by the 10th century Gnostic Gregory of Thrace in that part of the Byzantine Empire, which wasn't really Orthodox. It was actually almost totally Gnostic. A tale of the appearance of the departed Theodora of Constantinople, who died in 940 at the very height of the Bogomil Gnostic occupation of Constantinople, was told by a certain Theodora of Constantinople in a dream to an elder Basil the New, who died in 944. Whether in its Greek or Slavonic version the authenticity of the story has been seriously questioned, it is not part of the medieval Synaxaria, the collection of the lives of the saints. In other words, it was not recognized as an actual life of the saints from the 900s until the fall of Constantinople, of the Orthodox Church. The spread of Basil's life in Russia is the result of Bogomil literature reaching the popular imagination. According to Gregory, this Theodora, she came to Basil in a vision and revealed to him her experience after her soul left the body, of her encounter with 20 toll houses in her soul's ascent to heaven. Rose believes the story to be true, literally true, and tales of the account literally, takes them literally. Others did not, including Father Michael Pomazanski, and I mentioned his letter a little earlier. In a letter to Deacon Lev Vuhalo concerning prayers for the dead, Father Michael takes up the question of the toll houses. He observed that this vision came about in a dream. The dream is, of course, allegorical and is composed of a series of symbols. Symbols which Basil put into a certain order, the sins of people into a certain scheme, as this is a generally accepted practice of ascetic writers, the allegory and system. Father Michael therefore interprets Theodora as the soul, the angels as being its virtues, and the demons as being the reality of its sins. Both are in the soul of man, because his conscience is in his soul. Both are in the soul of man, perhaps after death are found, as it were, in the scales of a balance, in the man's own soul. Our sins accuse and convict us. The grace of God and our faith saves us. Father Michael's attitude of heavenly things, he confesses, comes from Metropolitan Macarius' Orthodox dogmatic theology, where the Metropolitan advises, accept earthly things here as the weakest kind of depiction of heavenly things. Father Seraphim was certainly aware of Father Michael's interpretation of the toll houses, but chose to ignore it. Or did he? Perhaps his use of the word metaphor to describe the toll houses signifies, on account of his respect for Father Michael, a slight retreat. In any case, Father Rose did not learn his lesson. Father Seraphim illustrates his theory from the lives of the saints, the hagiographies. We will examine only two. From St. Adaman's life of St. Columban and the vision of a monk at Winlock, from the letters of St. Boniface. He prefaces his treatment of these medieval saints with the admission that the name of toll house is not found in any of their lives. The term, he says, seems to be restricted to Eastern hagiographies, but the reality described in the Western sources is identical, or so Father Seraphim thinks. Turning our attention to St. Columban, who died in 597, Father Seraphim recounts the saint's words spoken to his monks. Now let us help by prayer the monks of the abbot Comgel, drowning at this hour in the slough of the calf. For behold, at this moment they are warring in the air against hostile powers who try to snatch every soul of a stranger who is drowning along with them. Then afar the prayers, he said, give thanks to Christ, for now the holy angels have met these holy souls and have delivered that stranger and triumphantly rescued him from the warring demons. We observe that the holy angels have met these holy souls and delivered the stranger. Inasmuch as the word soul also means human being in Western medieval literature, we cannot be sure whether the monks drowned, St. Columban says, whether they were drowning and not drowned. In any case, they are met by demons in the air, precisely where we would expect to find them. Also, St. Columban refers to warring demons, not judging demons. The choice of this episode is a poor one. It has no application to the argument at hand. No Orthodox denies that his life is a struggle, and that at the final judgment, we do not deny the hatred and pretensions of demons, nor the protective love of God's angels. Father Seraphim next calls upon the letters of St. Boniface, apostle to Germany, for corroboration. Boniface had learned personally about the vision of a monk in the monastery of Winlock, who died and came back to life after some hours. Something that St. John Chrysostom says is absolutely impossible, by the way. As Rose describes the experience in The Soul After Death, he cites Boniface, "Angels of such pure splendor bore him up as he came forth from the body that he could not bear to gaze upon them. They carried me up," he said, "high into the air in the spirit." He reported further that in the space of time while he was out of the body, a great multitude of souls left their bodies and gathered where he was, that he had thought formed the whole race of mankind on earth. He said also that there was a crowd of evil spirits and a glorious choir of holy higher angels, and he said that the wretched spirits and holy angels had a violent dispute concerning the souls that had come forth from their bodies, the demons bringing charges against him and aggravating the burden of their sins. The angels lightening their burdens and making excuses for them. Father Seraphim copies 2 more paragraphs, of which the monk has given a vision of many fiery pits vomiting forth terrible flames, which tortured the damned. His angelic escort warned him that only the saved can avoid this punishment. The monk is further shown the heavenly Jerusalem, where holy souls shall live forever with God in everlasting happiness. Even a cursory reading of the text reveals that the monk of Wenlock was in his spiritus, or spirit, not his anima, or soul, when carried high into the air. His spirit was free of his body. There is no mention of the monk's death, only of what occurs after death. There is no indication of souls passing through toll houses, only the accusation of demons and the defense of angels. The monk is shown the joys of heaven and the terrors of hell, but not as the places where souls are cast or falling, or for failing the test of 20 tax collectors. The monk was given a vision of the future, because heaven and hell will not exist and no one will be there until the second great judgment of Christ. Stop and think about that for a moment. How could any soul be in hell until Christ had condemned them and sent them there, and then only together with their body? If you read the Holy Fathers, of course, you already know that. Father Seraphim's analysis of the monk's vision is dishonest. Many things in Father Seraphim's book and writings are patently dishonest. When St. Boniface tells us that his spirit was carried away by an angel, Rose quite arbitrarily and dishonestly substitutes the word soul. St. Boniface never says that his soul departed the body, only that his spirit ascended, and declares him dead. It doesn't say that he was dead at all. When the saint writes that his spirit was given heightened awareness, Rose intrudes with the notion that a soul free of the body naturally has heightened awareness of the spiritual world. And yet, the Holy Fathers of the Orthodox Church tell us just the opposite. So you see, what's happened here is that the toll house cult has tried to make us Neoplatonists and Orphic Gnostics rather than Orthodox Christians. They've pressed upon us, and Vladimir Moss, of course, the worst of the offenders, has pressed upon us that we should believe Plato and Orphic Gnosticism rather than the Holy Fathers. Because if you read the Holy Fathers, every single teaching presented in the toll house myth is directly refuted by the Holy Fathers. So this naturally heightened awareness of the spiritual world. When St. Boniface states that his spirit returned to himself, Rose says that the monks returned from the dead. There's nothing like that in this vision of the monk of Wenlock. St. Boniface never says that the man was dead, that his soul had departed from the body and that he returned from the dead. It says that he had an experience where his spirit ascended to a condition of heightened spiritual awareness. That doesn't even mean that the spirit had exited the body. If you read St. Simeon the New Theologian, you realize that in fact the spirit did not exit from the body. And the soul certainly cannot exit from the body until the actual death, which God has set in his own time. Rose said that the monk returned from the dead. When St. Boniface mentions the demons condemning the monk and the souls of the dead for their sins, as is their wont, Father Seraphim describes the monk of Winnock after being raised by angels or passing through toll houses. This is patently dishonest. In fact, it's an outright lie, because nothing of the kind is said there at all. Father Seraphim Rose violates all the lives of the saints in the same way. They are valuable to him only as they may be construed with some imaginative interpreting to illustrate his theory. He is not cautious about words and their meaning. One is left with the uncomfortable position of not trusting him. Indeed, Father Seraphim writings are highly untrustworthy, and Father Seraphim was so convinced and fanatical in his points of view about that in a number of cases that he was not at all adverse to changing what was actually said in the lives of the saints, altering the words of the Holy Fathers, leaving out whole passages and texts from the Holy Fathers which disproved what he was trying to say, and taking certain sentences and phrases completely out of context, separating them from the whole of the work, and presenting them as if they validated his teaching. Now next we're going to take a look at prayers for the dead. What does the Orthodox Church actually teach us about the prayers for the dead? For those of you who are interested, I'll be happy to send you a free copy of On the Commemoration of the Dead According to the Holy Fathers, with the actual patristic teaching, not some stuff from folk tales and folk religion that handed down from Pharaonic Egypt that has more akin to the Tibetan or Egyptian books of the dead than they do with any Christian writing. So thank you very much. And again, if you want the book on the Commemoration of the Dead According to the Holy Fathers, just send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you free of charge. Well, thank you for joining us and God bless you.